This week on Hip Hop Now podcast, Jay-Z is the $200 million man. Lupe Fiasco admits to putting out subpar albums. And a listener asks, which is the golden era, the mid-90s or the late 80s?
But let's get right to the business.
Read these headlines. This album must be gone. This album must be gone.
Classic albums are. Classic albums are.
Come to Hip Hop Podcast.
What up, y'all? I am Vegas, and you're listening to Hip Hop Now podcast right here on Death Star Radio, DSR.FM. You can check out this podcast on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/hiphoppolitic. All the past episodes are there. Some of the news may be old, may be new to you, but please know that this podcast is designed to catch you up on all things hip-hop, music, and culture that happened throughout the week with perspectives. Real quick, if you're listening to this on Death Star Radio, if you go on the app, download the app, which is available on iOS and Android, you'll see a little symbol there for the B-Roll Network. That's mine. It's new. It's starting out. We got some content up there, but you can check out my YouTube series entitled One to Flow On. Check it out. Leave some comments, subscribe to the channel if you like the content, and please know that there will be more. So on the DSR app, Death Star Radio, if you didn't catch that, click on that B-Roll Network button and you'll see, a couple of my videos, including past episodes of this podcast. But let's get right into the business. And first and foremost, shout out to hiphopdx.com, for which I'm getting some of these stories from. Manny Fresh explains Cash Money's positive and negative effects on hip-hop. Wow, interesting. Let's see if we can find some quizzotes. What Cash Money was, and this is a quote from Manny Fresh, what Cash Money was at the beginning was a category. You still had categories in rap when we was doing that. Even though we was the flashy dudes, that was our category. We had our own lane because you got Slick Rick, who was a storyteller. You got Public Enemy, who led social movement. You had NWA, that was gangster rap. You had Cash Money, that was just the flashy dudes. Manny Fresh, I don't really agree with you, bro. Let me tell you what us, the people, looked at Cash Money. And no, I'm not a disgruntled, the South ruined hip-hop. No, it did not. But I feel like Cash Money, to me, I liked Cash Money because honestly, when Master P came out, I liked Master P's hustle. You know what I'm saying? With the Bout It movie. I like the fact that this dude did all of this himself. His rise to fame was all, constructed by his own doing. You know what I'm saying? He put this all together by himself for the most part. So I respected Master P in No Limit, but I never felt like I was that entertained by him as a rapper. I knew he wasn't no lyricist, but I still felt like he wasn't a dude that was good at it anyway, regardless if he had bars. But there were records I liked. But when Cash Money came out, they had a swag to them. I really can't say they were flashy because, what's flashy about tank tops, sneakers, and a hat and a chain? Like, nothing. That's the whole hood. But I think they eventually got there when they started making money. But the thing is, I felt like with Cash Money, I liked their style. They were like Master P. Like Master P was like your pop's rhyme, and he's okay at it, and so he's a little popular. But Cash Money was like the younger dudes done took it to another level because they had flows. You know what I'm saying? And that's what attracted me to Cash Money, was because they had the different flows, they had the different personalities. And I'm just a little sidebar for those who don't know, right? Lil Wayne was very different back then. And I will never forget, it's probably on YouTube, so don't get in your bag and just be like, yo, why you talk about him? You hating. But I remember watching BT, I think it was 106 in Park, like way back in the days. I think 106 in Park was around that time. But I remember Cash Money was there, right? This was the early days when they were all together, Hot Boys. And they asked Lil Wayne, who's your favorite rapper? And he said Missy Elliott. And I remember reading that also in a magazine. And I was kind of shocked, like, what the hell? Like, whoever says that? But they asked, well, why you like Missy? And he said he likes how when she's rhyming, she does sound effects also. And then when you listen to that old Wayne, I was like, yeah, he does kind of sound like Missy. So for those who like, nah, but he got better. No, he didn't. He had ghostwriters. They helped him get better. But come on. But that was just a sidebar. But yeah, Cash Money, like I have a Best of Cash Money, in my collection because I like those records back then. I like them for what they were. I got my bars for my bar listening to, but besides that, nah, chill. Whack 100 claims Biggie's murder was ordered and paid for by a Harlem resident and not Suge Knight. If you don't know who Whack 100 is, he's heavy on Instagram. He is the game's manager, I believe. He Instagrams. It'd be a lot of beef when he Instagrams. But I don't know if I want to read any more of that because at this point, I'm starting to think, and I'm not saying he is, but I'm starting to think that somebody told the truth about one of these stories, and now people who are involved or know people who could go down or could be highlighted are now throwing in names to send everybody in different directions. Because every 5 minutes, it's true. I heard Jay-Z got Tupac and Biggie killed. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. It's getting crazy. Kool G Rap is preparing for a return of the Don. That's the name of his new album that's coming, entitled Return of the Don, produced entirely by Canadian producer Moss. Moss put out a compilation, I think a year or two ago, it was pretty dope. For anybody who loves listening to the music that you hear on Death Star Radio but loves that boom bap sound, you should look it up. I forget the name of the album, but look up Moss, Moss, and you'll find whatever catalog he has there. But it was an album he put out. He had AZ, he had a number of people on it. It was clearly for the traditional hip hop heads. But this album is being produced entirely by him. And it looks like it's set to be released on June 2nd, 2017. It already has a cover with Kool G Rap on the cover as a cartoon, with the fur and the hat and the suit, dressed up like a Don. Some of the pounds is shaved off him, but I ain't hating. The cover looks pretty dope. It's 11 tracks, and I swear it's damn near a feature on every one of them. But I think I like the features. Let's just go through the tracks real quick because there's only 11. Return of the Don, that's Kool G Rap by himself. Mac Lean, which features Fred the Godson and AG the Coroner. Never heard of that dude, but looking forward to it. Criminal Outfit, featuring Noriega. Wise Guys, featuring Fame of MOP and Freeway. Out of That Life, featuring Raekwon. Time's Up, which is a solo record by Kool G Rap. Capitol Hill, featuring Manolo Rose, Sheik Luch, and Core Mega. Runnin', featuring Terminology and Saigon. I told you it was a lot of features. World Is Mine, featuring Crooked Eye or King Crooked. Willie the Kid and Pearl Gates. Popped Off, featuring Sean Price and Ransom. Ransom is dope. Stop sleeping on Ransom, y'all. And lastly, Rest in Peace, featuring Conway the Machine and Westside Gun. Now, last week we talked about features because of the fact that Kool Keith said that younger artists are afraid to stand alone. Now, I know right now there's a dude who's younger who listens to this podcast that was probably somewhat in his feelings like, we don't all just do features because we can't rhyme. And now he's looking at this like, well, look at this. Your legend. He got all these dudes. He's had plenty of albums, history of albums, where it didn't have that many features in it. I just want to add one more feature. Do one more song with Nas. Because I still love Fast Life to this day. It's a dope record. Just add that, please. Just one more. Maybe he tried. Who knows? Meek Mill put out a mini mixtape over the weekend. And ladies and gentlemen, it was only 3 songs, and I couldn't even get through the 3. Not because I don't like Meek Mill. I'm not one of those people who subscribe to the idea that now Meek Mill is whack just because Drake said so. No, he's not. He's not at all. He wasn't whack before when you liked him. Stop letting these dudes dictate who you like. I check it out because Meek can still have bars. He just, I don't know. Maybe he was too emotional to come back at Drake in a timely fashion. He got served, but he's still nice. But in regards to this mixtape, the Meekend or whatever it was called, it just wasn't for me. Not that I don't like the trap sounding Migos flows. I just kind of felt like with Meek, I prefer when Meek gives you a mixture of the two. But I really don't want to just hear that because it's kind of like, well, now who are you? You know what I'm saying? If you're just going to Migos flow it through 3 songs with features, at the end of the day, who are you? Now, people are talking about, he said something about Drake and Nicki Minaj, but honestly, I don't even care at this point. It's so old that it shouldn't even matter, so who cares? Logic has confirmed that his next album will be his last. He released a new album recently entitled Everybody on Cinco de Mayo, and he had this to say when he spoke in an interview with Genius, saying, that's going to be my last one. Everything with my life has been so effing serious, and it's been a effing message. And that's not to say there won't be a message and whatever, but I just want to end everything with a really big bang and get the F out of here. Better to go out on top like Jerry Seinfeld, 9 seasons, #1 effing show in the world, over $1 billion. I'd rather do that. Now, I am not the biggest Logic fan, but I definitely agree with him. Unfortunately, with hip-hop, and a lot of people don't know this until they really, really get involved. I'm not talking about just making records, but once you really get involved with the business side, it's almost unlike any other genre of music. You face so many hurdles in regards to critics, like myself, but it's my opinion not to like them. I mean, whatever. That comes with the territory, so maybe I shouldn't say that. But there are other elements. There are beefs. There's people who may want to extort you or ride your coattails. And, that can happen in any genre, but it's heightened in hip-hop. Quick story, quick example. You know what I'm saying? I started my radio career as a host of a hip-hop show. That was my first on-air FM show in BMOR. Shout out to Strictly Hip Hop. 12 to 5 on Fridays. Check them out, weaa.org. They ain't paid for that, but whatever. But, that was my first show. And, I'm a dude, I come from the hood, but I'm not a hood. You get what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I'm in college. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to come up out of poverty. But when you're trying to do your radio thing and you got rappers coming up saying they have an interview when they don't have an interview, they trying to muscle you into something. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that I never thought about. Now, I can't say that the Isley Brothers ain't roll up on Frankie Crocker like, yo, fam, what up? Yo, play this record. Not that they needed to do that because they were good already. But, you know what I'm saying? With hip-hop, that was frequent. That things like that would happen. It was frequent that I would host something and, dudes look like they don't want to pay. And I got to get in my hood bag and just be like, look, I don't get paid to do this job anyway, so punching you in the face won't get me fired. And I'm not condoning violence, but I'm saying I can understand where Logic is coming from with that because of the simple fact that hip hop just comes with so many things that just are unnecessary when you're just trying to express yourself through your music and, be successful and make money. So if you get out the game, now people don't look for you as an in to whatever it is. So, I agree. I still haven't checked out the album, but I definitely will check it out eventually to see what's good with it. I'm not that much of a hater. Who knows? Maybe I'll like this more than anything. Lupe Fiasco says that he kind of took a self-imposed L with his last album, Drogas Light. Or Drogas Light or Drug, I don't know. Drug Ass, I don't know what it's called. Let me know in the comment section. But he's had some well-documented beef with his label, Atlantic Records, and since his 2011 album Lasers, he said he's basically been phoning it in with every release, saying that this latest album, Drogas Light, was basically a collection of old-ass records that were put together. Now, he promises that with the sequel, which I believe is also going to come out this year, Drogas Wave, you're going to get a more involved Lupe Fiasco. Now, I kind of have a problem with that, man, because Lupe has some very dedicated fans that have been there since his debut. And I can't say I'm one of them. I'm the dude where I check in, and if I like it, I rock with it. If I don't, I keep it moving, but I always check because I liked his debut album. But it's kind of a disservice to your fans to say that you're just throwing this stuff out there because, well, I would feel like a fan like, well, let me know when you're going to make a real album so I can stop spending my money on these albums. You don't even care about it. And it's kind of whack because, yeah, you don't want to make money for them, but you're not doing your brand any justice. Because, okay, imagine he gets free from his contract, right? Well, there's certain people who ain't going to mess with him now because they like, look, I know what your beef is between the label, but what did it have to do with me as a fan of your music? I bought that thinking that you worked on this and cared about it, and you don't care. So if you don't care, why the hell should I care? You know what it's like when they say, when parents get divorced, the kids are the one who suffer the worst. It's the same. It's almost the same thing when you talk about the fans. And you will suffer the worst because fans will move on. Somebody will step in your lane, which I believe has already happened to Lupe because of a number of artists like J. Cole or Kendrick. They're already kind of in that lane to a certain degree. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. And just a note, even though he said it was old ass songs, I kind of like that album. And I at the beginning of the year, I have it on my potential best of 2017, even though the man who made it doesn't necessarily feel like it's his best work, which is crazy. DJ Academics denies ever calling Wale corny. Now, this is this is interesting. All right, this is the wolf tickets that Academics was selling. Let me clear the air real quick. I want to make sure he knows what I'm thinking and the stuff that I've said or what he thinks I've said that I actually said it. Now, Wale, I didn't mention and you were mad. Wait, what? I did mention and you were mad at me over some ish I said where I said people, the perception of you is that you might be corny. You thought that was me saying it to you. I'm just clarifying. I didn't say that personally. So Wale said this, and this is all on Joe Budden's podcast, Everyday Struggle. I'm not a hater. I'll mention it. But Wale said this, you are very sarcastic. Luckily for you, the demographic in which that follows you, they don't peep the little slick-ish you do. I can smell sarcasm on you. I can smell sarcasm in your posts. Sounds to me that DJ Academics, I think I agree with Wale. And I agree with DJ Academics. Wale is kind of corny, but he can still be a dope artist. Don't sleep. Go listen to some of the mixtape. He got bars. He has bars. But he can be corny. But I think what makes Wale corny to me, and you can tell him I said I don't care. But what makes him corny, I'm putting up the air quotes, is the fact that he kind of airs out his emotions too much on social media, like Meek Mill, where people start to look at you differently. And sometimes those moments of expressing yourself become what they think of you. Now, if you did it in a record and it was in a slick way or whatever, then people would just look at it as you expressing, your feelings. I feel like Kanye's a corny dude. He still makes dope music. There's nothing wrong with being corny. You know what I'm saying? Trying to be in the cool crowd is what's corny to me. But if you're just naturally like, yo, man, these are the things I like, so be it, whatever. Some may feel it's corny, some may not. But I did feel like Academics was kind of copping the plea because the man was in front of him. And he ain't like, Charlemagne or one of these dudes or Taxstone who would just say it like, I think you're whack. You know what I'm saying? And I don't care what you think about it. But whatever. I think this podcast is something's going to happen on this podcast. I'm going to tell you right now, because it feels like with everything they have, they're getting more press off of confrontations. Remember the whole situation with Lil Yachty? They're starting to get more press off of stuff like that. So I get it. People like stuff like that and some people don't, but whatever. It's definitely something to talk about, and that's why I talked about it, because I felt like Wale is kind of corny, man. Don't renege. Academics, don't renege, man. Stick to your guns. Jay-Z is the $200 million man. Why? Because he just secured a deal with Live Nation. They do concerts and shows and stuff like that for $200 million. I believe the previous contract was for $100 million. Jay-Z cannot be stopped. I know there's some people who don't like him today, but I don't care. You have to respect the business. You have to respect where he was as an MC during the quote-unquote golden age, which we're going to talk about in a few seconds. You have to respect his rise. I don't care if you felt like him, Nas is better. It's not even about that. It's really about where he came from as an artist, where he came from as a businessman, as a man, as a dude from the ghetto who grew up poor, just like, a lot of us. You have to expect where he is. And, his business is right. So salute to that dude, man. So that's still hip-hop. Sorry. You can act like it's not just because it ain't been in a while, but it still is. Lastly, I want to talk about something that I used to do, but I'm going to bring it back. And it's where I take a question that someone asked me during the week, and you could definitely do the same, whether it's in the comment section or you can hit me up on Twitter at VegasWorldINC and ask me a question. But I want to pose a question to y'all. This person said, which era is actually the golden era? Is it the 90s, that early to mid 90s with the Nas and the Wu-Tangs and the Black Moons and Biggies, that whole era? Or is it the late 80s with the debuts of like BDP and even Run DMC had a dope album. Eric B. and Rakim came out. EPMD, Slick Rick came out, all of the classics. And this is my opinion. I'm going to keep it brief. The early 90s, early to mid 90s is not the golden era. It is not. I refer to it as a renaissance, and I'll tell you why. I feel like 88, the late 80s, maybe 87 to 90, I feel like, or maybe 87 to 89, let's say that. I feel like that was the golden era. Why? Because, again, when Eric B. and Rakim came out, and Rakim came with that flow that wasn't that yes, yes, y'all, it changed the game. And all of a sudden, there were a number of dope MCs, and none of them were alike, that put out classic albums that we knew were classics when we heard it. Great Adventures of Slick Rick, Criminal Minded, Paid in Full, Run DMC's Raising Hell. I think that came out in 87. Correct me if I'm wrong. Classics. Classic albums. And they were kept coming out with them. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just naming a few. I believe Light as a Rock came out in 88. 88, that was like a golden age. That's what you call a golden age. When you look at wrestling and they refer to the golden age of WWE or WWF, they refer to what? The Hulk Hogan's, the Ultimate Warriors, Macho Man, that whole Ric Flair, that whole era, right? And then when they talk about the Attitude Era, which is the 90s, that's a whole different thing. That's more of a resurgence because after the golden era, wrestling got really whacked with the Doink the Clown and all that stuff. And then you had The Rock and Stone Cold. That's what the 90s is. It's the Attitude Era. It's the same thing. It's not the golden era, but it's a resurgence, and probably more so for the East Coast than anything, because I refer to it as a resurgence because I feel like when 90, and don't forget NWA also came out during that golden era time. Classics, B. Golden era. But like if you think about like 91, 92, Death Row shut it down. You know what I'm saying? Like Death Row was running hip hop. It was the number one thing. And on the East Coast, even though we had Tribe and all of that, we were kind of on the East Coast stomp and, you know, zippity doodah flows and stuff, and it was cool. But I'm telling you, as a dude who grew up in Brooklyn around that time, I was getting a little tired of it because I'm looking at the West Coast and it looked like the hood and they just rhyming. And I looked at us and we wearing cross colors and we mad colorful and we like zippity doop dop the doop. Oh, you know what I'm talking about. I sound like an old man when I said that. Whatever. But you know what I'm saying? I felt like I was getting a little tired of that age of hip hop. You know, even though culturally it was good, but that wasn't what I was seeing. And then you got the Illmatics, and you got the Into the Stage, the Shining, and the Ready to Die, and Into the 36 Chambers. Then it was like, oh, they upped the game even more than Rakim did. You know what I'm saying? With the lyrics and the sound, the sampling became different. Everything changed. So don't get me wrong, it's another shift in hip-hop culture for the better, and it definitely took it into the future. But it wasn't like the first time hip-hop became a big thing, because 1988 alone, when you hear rappers, especially from New York, talk about 88 being such a good year, 88, 89, that's because damn near every album that came out is a classic today. And I'm not just talking about hip-hop. I'm talking about R&B also, old music. But when you talk about the 90s, you felt that way too. But it had already happened once. You know what I'm saying? You already had that big boom that happened once. So I don't know. How do you feel? Do you feel like it's the golden era? And just to be clear, my time, like when I grew up, the time that you would feel I would be the most biased for is the 90s. I was a teenager in the 90s. That was soundtrack to my life. But I still don't feel like it even compares to what was happening in 88, where it was a complete changing of the guard. You know, that took like 10 years for it to be 77, and then, you know, then these dudes change it in 88. They changed the way everybody rhymes. The shift and change between the 90s, quote-unquote, golden era, not that much time had passed. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't a drastic change. They just elevated the lyricism. But that's going to do it for me for this week. You can follow me on social media at Vegas World INC. And you can check out this podcast at Hip Hop Now. Well, it's called Hip Hop Now, but SoundCloud.com/Hip Hop Politic. Subscribe to the B-Road Network on YouTube. Till next week, y'all. I am not a critic. I'm a fan. Yeah. Drop it on the random.